Good evening, folks. Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. Continuation of the Global War 1939 series on special units. Topic of this video is going to be infantry and specialized infantry. And we've already discussed airborne, so I'm not going to include them in this video. And I have lots of different sculpts and units out just for display. And we're going to, I guess, talk about the original 1939 and some of the units that were there. They're all going to be in this version as well, with the addition of the Australian Z unit. So that is one of the units we're adding, which is the commando unit for the Australians. We're giving it a specific name. Now, some of the original specialized units that were in the original, as you recall, for the Germans had their SS infantry, the Japanese had their veteran, and also their SNLF, and the Italians had their Bersaglieri, which, if I can say that right, the British had their commandos, the Americans had their US Marines, the Russians, as I pan this way, had their elite guards and also their partisan infantry, which are not specialized. The French had their Foreign Legion, and the Australians are going to have their Z units, as I mentioned. Now, those units are for sale on HBG, although I do not have any to show you at this time, and I apologize. I have a big order coming, folks, from HBG, and it just it's not here yet. But all of these sculpts are going to be available for purchase on HBG. And well, what are these specialized infantry going to do? Well, a lot of them are for doing amphibious attacks, like the US Marine or the SNLF or the Commandos. So they are going to roll +1 on the first round of combat. Some of them are going to defend a little bit better. The partisans are, for the Russians, are a little bit different, as if you recall. They go in and vacate a territory. If the Germans, say, took a territory, the the partisan would come in if it's vacated at the start of their turn, and the next turn, if they have not been attacked, then 2 form and they turn into 1 regular infantry. But I don't believe they attack, and I think they defended a 2. So this is the sculpt that I use for the Russian partisan infantry. Basically, it was just a bunch of locals who took up arms, so to speak. Now, obviously, with the being a visual game and having all these different units, you really want to be able to identify what they are in the game so there's no confusion. And thankfully to HBG, well, there are many different sculpts that you can purchase. Some of them come in, they're out of box, which you may have. Some of the really cool sculpts are the box sets, the 172 box sets that HBG sells, and there's quite a few different ones they sell. Some of them now, thanks, the original stuff that HBG was selling was some of their injection molded pieces, which I believe these Russians are. So that's a 3D, got them kind of weathered a little bit with an painted red, I think crimson red with an orca. This one maybe have a little bit too much on it. Or now they're coming out with a lot of 3D printed. A lot of them, if it's a designated unit for whatever country, would have 4 different options from sculpts. And thanks to Doug, I specifically asked for this sculpt for Canada. Now, this is a Canadian World War II infantry, and you can see how it's able to identify, the Canadian World War II infantry had this sort of bowl-shaped helmet on there, and so that's kind of a iconic looking unit for, that I think a lot of Canadians can resemble to. So thank you for Doug for making this unit. I will go through a little bit more, but first I want to say that now there's Gurkhas that are available. Obviously the Canadians. Doug is making a South African infantry, a Siam infantry. Now you can choose to buy these sculpts, or you can use these fancy chips to put them under to designate. You can put them, if you want to designate an SLF, you've got a chip, you can just put it on top like that. to help identify. Some people like to cut the bases off and glue them on, or just paint. You can do whatever you like. You can see that's the SNLF. That's the airborne for the Japanese. And for the Germans, you've got your SS, your Panzergrenadier, or your Fallschirmjäger. In British, you've got your Commandos. That's a Canadian 1st Airborne symbol. And then obviously some of the more famous ones are the American Airborne. So lots of these little markers for sale on HBG. This is a box set of Japanese, the jungle infantry. And you can see they just look, I don't know, like these guys, you do not want to mess with them. They look like they could, just ready to bonsai charge and attack. This is a Japanese paratrooper. You can see if you turn it around, it's got, oh, sorry, I apologize. That's I think a veteran, it could be a veteran Japanese. That's the paratrooper. You can see it's got the paratrooper backpack on. Or you can use, a lot of people like these Pacific out-of-box pieces, which are red. I don't like having red units because I use red for my capital city markers, so I don't use these sculpts, but I know some people like to buy the Axis and Allies Pacific set just for these red units. Or you can use the original Axis and Allies, which I've done for my veteran Japanese units in the past, because they're obviously a different shade and they kind of obviously older, so they kind of, you know, suit the veteran unit very well. For some of the Italian units, you can get the German sculpts in brown, which are the out-of-box sort of German pieces. You can see there, that's or the German unit with the Panzerfaust. That's an out-of-box Italian unit. Kind of a cool looking sculpt. Always like that sculpt. This one, I got this in St. Louis. Somebody painted it and I won it. So I won a lot of the 3D painted. I love these. Some people are just so good at painting. So if you are skilled folks, you can see the detail in this sculpt. And this is what I use for my regular base German infantry in the game. Now, base infantry in the game, I don't know if I mentioned, they're going to cost 3 IPP, attack at 3, attack at 2, defend at 4. The special infantry are going to be the cost of 4 IPP, so nothing game breaking, a little bit more expensive. Now, I love this sculpt. This is the British Commando sculpt, which has been for sale on HBG for a while, but man, that just looks cool. This guy just looks, he just looks ready to attack. Now, this is the out-of-box sort of charged sculpt, which we're all familiar with. And this is a box commando set that I bought. Once at the 172, just to show you. Again, with these 172 sculpts, you can usually tell they are from that series because they don't have a round base, which for some people is a game-breaking decision, and they like to have. So I've seen people actually cut them off and glue the round base sculpts on. Some U.S. Marines, which there's a whole kit you can buy, a whole army you get with the Corsair and stuff like that. So my best friend, my childhood best friend, was a U.S. Marine, and so yeah, whenever I got to use the U.S. Marines, I always thought that was kind of cool and special, you know, Semper Fi and tip of the spear and all that stuff. So for a lot of folks, they can really relate to these specialized units, obviously because they know people or they watch movies with these soldiers in them, or they know about them. But anyway, there's a real sentimental value, I think, to having these in the game, and why I believe, for me, having these individual units in the game is very, makes the game, for me, much more special to play when I get to use U.S. Marines. These are another 172 set for the Russians. I think this is it's actually their Elite Guard set. These were, I think, the Pegasus. They're snapped together. The bases on these ones are a little bit better. I painted them a little bit different color red to kind of help them stand out. I think I've shown you the Russian units. This is a unit that's available from HBG for an additional French unit. This is the out-of-box French unit. And this is the Communist Chinese sculpt from HBG. And then they also sell now I don't have it, but a different, newer sculpt for the Nationalist Chinese, but that's the out-of-box sculpt. Well, I think that's all the infantry. Now you can be creative, you can do whatever you like. And obviously, I wish I had more sculpts to show you folks. What some folks even do is they will just get a chip. I didn't demonstrate this, but they'll just put it on top to designate. If you want to help it stand up more, you can get all different color chips, whether it's red or blue, to help you identify units. So some people like to do it that way. But that kind of sums up infantry, folks. What we're going to talk about next is mindset. Now, if you ever taken sports or whatever, there's only so much your coach can do to help you, whether it's X's and O's or someone can give you a job or someone can give you things. But if you really want something in life, you yourself are responsible for getting yourself in the right mindset to achieve your objective. Now, what do I mean by that? What about this? What's this mindset I'm talking about? This is something individually, when you start thinking about what you want to do in life, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to hold yourself to working your ass off to the highest standard possible of excellence. I remember I love the Band of Brothers series. Another character that I really admired in that series was Carwood Lipton. And you hear, I love these speeches they do at the start of each episode. And Carwood Lipton's talking about this kind of mindset that really sunk home for me. And he said, it's a feeling that you would not let yourself down. You would not let your comrades or your unit down. Now, when he said those words, I just thought, this is an individual and he is committed to the cause. This guy has put his ego aside and he's going to do whatever it takes to sacrifice himself or whatever it is, whether it's hard work or jumping on a grenade, because whatever he was trying to do, which is obviously defeat the Germans and win the war, but that cause to him was more important than himself, and he was willing to lay his life on the line to meet that objective. And he didn't just say it; he knew when he said it, he meant those words. So when he said it, it just goes to show that when you have an individual that has that level of commitment to meeting their goal, that nothing is going to stop them. And what makes that unit special, when you don't just have one individual thinking that way, when you have a collective and a team, that is, they can achieve and do whatever they want. And that is a commonality amongst all successful teams, amongst all successful people. They have that mindset. So it's not something somebody told them in terms of this is what you have to do in terms of strategy. It's just a belief they had. And that's not something you can coach. That's up to everybody to think that way or be able to think that way. So just wanted to share that with you folks. And thank you for watching. And please share and like and stay tuned.